Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. As you can see, I'm with the main man himself, Mr. Dave Levy, and we're going to spend a few minutes chatting about all things fishing, RidgeMonkey, and everything else that comes along. So, hi Dave, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Mark. Thanks for having me along, mate.
Absolutely, our pleasure. So, I think we'll probably start somewhere at the beginning. I think people probably you're well associated with RidgeMonkey,
Yeah.
but do you want to just give us a little brief into how you became part of the RidgeMonkey team and how you became
Oh,
one of
wow.
their main sort of frontmen?
Basically, I've spent a long time fishing for nearly 40 years this year, and in that time, I've worked for Nash for 10 years, Calder for nearly 10 years, and
Wow.
I've now been at RidgeMonkey for 9, 10 years. So I've sort of been in the industry, but RidgeMonkey was the first company that I decided to leave my job and work full time for, as in in the fishing industry. Because before,
Mm.
I was always worried it was going to ruin my hobby, so I worked part time for Nash and part time for Cordy, as a consultant. And it weren't till I sort of went to RidgeMonkey that I decided to take the leap and just go for it full time.
Oh, right, okay. So you were saying that you were part time with Nash, and so what were you doing alongside that? I presume it was you were
Yeah, I
a
worked.
normal job.
Yeah, I worked on an oil refinery on the edge of the River Thames for like
Oh, wow.
15 years. So I was working in the oil refinery, and Kevin did offer me a full-time job a few times, but I always turned it down, like I say, because I didn't want to be fully committed and think, oh, fishing's becoming too much. I didn't want to fall out of love with fishing, because I love it so much, you know what I mean? So I
Yeah, I
always
mean that
turned the jobs down.
that's really interesting because obviously a lot of people I speak to, a lot of comments you see on social media. I mean, people say, they give their right arm to do that. But so fishing was really just it was a pleasure thing. It was a hobby. It was something you did in your spare
Yeah,
time.
I suppose with me, it's never been a hobby fishing. It's almost been a way of life for me
Oh,
because
okay.
any free time I've had from the age of 7 years old has been spent in the pursuit of the biggest carp I can possibly get to fish for physically. Like so,
Right.
I've
So
always. Sorry, mate. Go on.
yeah, well, just so has it always been carp? Has carp always been the focus then?
Well, no, when I was younger, occasionally we'd hook one by accident. It was more sort of float fishing, and I did actually fish quite a few matches in that when I was younger. And I think they're really important because when you're fishing for other species, you learn a lot about the water and how other species feed and things like that. You do really build up a lot of knowledge that I believe makes you a better carp angler because it gives you better watercraft. So that was my early years, and then when I got into my teens, particularly mid to late teens, become more focused on wanting to catch carp.
Right. So did you have, was it, what sort of access did you have to waters? What sort of places were you fishing? Were they club waters, syndicate waters?
Um,
When you in your sort of teens?
Most of the time, I was fishing a place called Fillmore's, which was two lakes nestled between a council estate in Basildon. I saw some sights there.
Yeah, I
And,
can imagine.
yeah, and I learned a lot on there. There's probably only 50 carp in the lake, so they weren't that easy to come by, And a lot of my time was spent fishing for the crucian and the tench. And it was when I started to accidentally hook the carp that I wanted to learn more about how to catch them. And there was a local guy called Jerry, and he'd caught a fish called the silver end fish, which was the biggest fish in Essex.
Oh,
And
wow.
I knew where he lived, this guy, because I walked past his house with my little fishing box. And when I saw him in the Angling Times holding this carp, his name was Jerry Chandler. I went up at 13 years old, just knocked on his door, and his wife answered and said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yeah, I see your husband in the paper." I said, "I'd like to learn how to tie more carp rigs." She went, "Yeah, come in then." And I walked in his house that day, and we ended up best mates until he died 4 years ago at 80 odd years old. So,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah,
What an incredible story. So, I mean, that is so far detached from how things are now with
yeah.
social media. And, I mean, you see so many posts where people I'm fishing on such and such a lake. What swim should I look for? What how many wraps? What depths? What
Yeah, yeah.
so that's a sort of grassroots learning, isn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah, I was lucky because Jerry took me to Yateley at a very young age. Probably the first time I went to Yateley, I was probably 15, 14,
Wow.
15. And I was fishing, I met like Rob Malin, Richie McDonald,
Oh,
and
okay.
at the time, probably especially Malin and Richie were like they were the men, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it taught me a lot about not to hero worship anglers. You know what I mean? Not there was anything wrong with Richie and Rob, and I still got a lot of admiration for both of them,
Mm,
especially Richie, who would take the time to talk to you, even if you was a young kid. You know, he'd show you. And I remember him showing me a rig once, and I couldn't believe how basic it is. It was like, and saying to him, "Is that it?" And he said, "You don't need anything too smart to catch carp. You need to get the correct feeding situation." And Richie was like way ahead of his time. You know what I mean?
yes.
He understood things that people are only just starting to understand now about feeding situations and areas to fish and things like that. And yeah, any
So
chance? Sorry.
no, I was just gonna. So, do you what you sort of did back then and learned back then? Do you still have you still carried that forward into your sort of now fishing? I mean,
Yeah, things have really moved on since then. So now, if you like the old saying, if I knew then what I knew now,
yeah, yeah,
things would
yeah.
have been different. But I mean, at that time, they were on the cutting edge of it. They were the guys doing it on the hardest lakes in the country that contained 6 to 10 fish and two 40 pounders when there was possibly five in the entire country, you know.
Wow. So what made you then sort of go from, or what got you into doing the stuff that you were doing for Nash? How did that come about?
Oh,
Because
so
obviously,
that
I'm
was
guessing there was no social media back then.
much later down the line. I will say that meeting them people at such a young age, when I went back to my local lakes, it really sprung me forward past all the other local anglers because I was getting this knowledge.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, and I was probably a pest, you know what I mean? I would drive them mad, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I sort of learned a lot. And my local waters where I used to struggle, I started to learn about fish meals and pre-baiting and things like this. And maypoles were like a massive thing for me. I used so many,
Wow.
yeah, and like yeah, it literally my carp fishing went from catching one or two a year to literally destroying the lakes in my local area and catching everything that swam in them basically. And
Wow.
like yeah, so but from I was like a sponge, you know, like one of them
Mm.
young kids who if someone told me something and I knew it made sense, I never forgot it. You know what I mean? I just took it in and moved forward with it. I'm still the same now. I still don't. Even now, 40 years later, if someone shows me something, I don't poo-poo it. I never think, oh, I know enough, or no, I never know enough. I'm like, I'm going to always be the student of it.
Right. Okay. So that that sort of knowledge, then, as you say, you've carried that forward in and applied that now. Do you think that's kind of lacking now? Do you think people don't need? It's too quick to learn now.
Yeah, I think they're too. The information now is so fast. They can sit in front of YouTube and watch 20 videos. If you're gonna, make sure you watch my channel. But like
Obviously,
20 channels and get overwhelmed with information, or watch an underwater series and think, oh, I can't even hook a carp. Look, I just get away
yeah,
with it. Because you've got to remember, a lot of that underwater, them guys doing it, they are good anglers, but they would not fish in them situations normally.
mm,
That's an almost an unnatural situation to fish on rock hard gravel, where it's gonna so they don't miss the camera up because you'll be fishing the slightly softer area,
yeah,
and they're trying to show how effective their rigs are. And where I think it's very misleading is their rigs are ineffective on that particular substrate, but move them 6 foot away, they might be super effective. You know what I mean? So I think that the underwater stuff is, although interesting, quite unrealistic. And I see a lot of stuff go on there, like the recent one on in Holland when Danny, and I'm not putting Danny down. I think Danny's done for carp fishing what Kevin Maddox did with a hair rig, like. But who puts 15 kilo of bait in the spring? And when I watched it, I
Yeah,
thought, "What the doing? Are you are you mental?"
yeah,
And
yeah,
then didn't get a bite off it. Like, but I suppose when you've got the pressure of trying to catch a fish for a camera, the guy who runs a lake telling you to put it in, it's really, sometimes you'll forget what you know and get led. And I think that happens to us all. It happens to me now, and sometimes I have to go when I join a lake. I don't want to talk to the guys that have fished it. I don't want to know what bait they're coming out on. I don't want to know any of it,
okay.
because if I speak to a guy that last year fished 200 nights on the lake and caught 10 carp, realistically, I want to
Yeah.
do better. I want to do better than him. I don't want to catch him. He's just a time bandit. I want to catch him in a much shorter time frame than what he is. So if I do what he done, his results will be my results.
Yeah, I mean it makes so much sense, doesn't it? I mean, and I agree. The underwater stuff. I mean, it is incredible to watch, but it can also sort of bring you the sort of social media or the TV of doom. You know, you just kind of
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
well, what's the point? But yeah, understanding how you sort of looked at that and seeing that artificialness. But it's interesting. I mean, because obviously one of the things that everyone says is, you know, if they're fishing somewhere and people will say, talk to the other anglers, talk to the you know the bailiff
yeah,
will
yeah.
put you right and all that kind of thing. So you kind of shy away a little bit from that. You'd rather just take your knowledge and apply it to what's in front of you.
Yeah, exactly that. Like I use mainline bait and have for 15, sorry, go on me, 15 or more years now. And I'm not plugging it, because we talk about plugging things later on, but I don't. It's one thing I don't question. You know what I mean? When I go
Hmm.
to a lake, I don't think, will my bait work? I don't. I know the bait
Yeah,
works.
yeah,
No matter
yeah,
where I go with it. The only time I might question what bait I need is if the situation changes, as in crayfish. You know what I mean? Mitten crabs,
yeah.
things like that, which are going to affect the bait. Then I might have to fish tigers. But obviously, I've built up a wealth of knowledge in 40 years, and I'm not saying I can't learn something off someone. But when I look at people, if I go to a lake and they're struggling, I don't need to know why they're struggling. I need
Yeah,
to know
yeah.
how I'm going to catch them. You know what I mean?
Yes. Just while we're talking about bait, what's your go-to on mainline? What's the sort of main?
Well, obviously, cell's really good, and believe it or not, I don't use a lot of cell because I do like to get something going. I also like to have a twist and something different. So lately, I've been using the ISO fish,
Hmm.
but I've been buying two ingredients from Tesco's that I tip over the top of them that makes it super effective. And
Wow.
so I'll always have a twist going. So sometimes people will have, I know I'm going to catch them on the ISO fish. I've been getting loads of bites on it, but I like to add a little twist to it. So I've got something a little bit different to everyone else. So
Yeah,
if
yeah.
someone's following me in, they ain't buying 1 kilo of what I've been piling in and having the same result, which sometimes does happen. But a lot of the time, I'm very secretive on the bait I'm using on the water
Right.
until
Okay. Which is yeah. That's
until
where.
it's all over. Like, because there is a range of baits. Some of the range of baits I use for mainline, people wouldn't believe. You know what I mean? Because they go against the grain,
Oh,
but
okay.
they all work. I'm happy to take like shelf life banoffee, which no one would even think of using in the UK. They're all taking it abroad on holiday.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll use that in the UK, and I've absolutely torn some lakes apart on it, and everyone just assumes because of the colour of it I'm using seal.
Wow.
Yeah,
Kev better get stocked up on it then, because
yeah,
he could end up selling more of it.
yeah, yeah. So there's this big misconception that shelf life isn't as good as frozen, and it's absolute rubbish. A lot of the time, shelf life bait has to be better quality because it's shelf life. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
wow.
And
Okay.
it is just as effective as frozen bait.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. So, and of course, going back to the start of your fishing 40 years ago is kind of very similar to mine. I think mine's 44 now. So, were you an advocate of mashed trout pellet with sardine and molasses and all those sort of things that people don't even use anymore? I remember so many times, you know, scorching pellet and mixing tins of sardine to make a paste
Yeah.
that we used to actually put round a quarter of a new potato.
Wow.
because boilies weren't even
Yeah,
really
yeah.
a common thing then. I mean, the first boilies I ever used were made out of semolina.
Yeah, well,
Um,
I think the first baits I ever made was semolina and soya flour,
yeah, yeah,
baby's milk, and SBS, which was a bait company,
yeah,
cream
that's,
oil, and
yeah.
I did very well. I actually caught some of the Yateley carp out of Match Lake on that, and
Wow.
all them years back. But yeah, I suppose I remember years back if you used a shop bought boilie, you was considered a noddy. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like
absolutely.
a bit
Yeah,
like now it's like, and then years later it was the dumb thing to buy bait. And if you look at it now, it's like shop bought rigs. No one would ever think about using a shop bought rig.
yeah.
They're one of the biggest sellers now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is incredible, isn't it? It's I mean, I remember being shown the knotless knot when it first was a thing,
Yeah,
and trying to get my head around how this thing actually kept the hook in place. You know, I mean,
yeah, yeah.
whereas like you say now, I mean, just the rig. Do you, while we're on rigs, do you feel that have rigs gone over complicated? Do you try and keep things more simple, or do you have to have 10 components to your rig, or?
Look, I think of it like this, right? And I don't want to slag fishing companies off because I'm in the trade myself. But look, it'd be great from a sales point of view to
Mm.
sell the rig that holds the most components
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you're going to make the most money. That's
yeah.
like business sense. The spinner rig, the Ronnie, it's not a bad rig. I've caught loads of fish on it,
Mm,
but it does, in fact, hold the most components out of any rig. My favourite rig to use is the blowback, which
okay.
I would put up against any rig out there the way I fish it. And it has a bit of string tube, you know what I mean? And that's it,
Mm,
really. It's a very,
yeah,
very
yeah.
basic rig on a sharp hook. I tend to look at creating feeding situations, making carp overconfident, because people, you can't just put the emphasis on the rig. When you catch a fish, look at it as a percentage thing, 1 to 10. You know, the rig is free of it, the bait is
Okay.
free of it, so you can then the spot, the weather condition, and
Mm,
when you capture at 10%, anything lower, you've just got a bit of a chance. So you're trying to reach 10% on your angling situation all the time. So yeah, rigs, are they overcomplicated? No, I don't think so. Like sometimes I use a chod rig if there's low lying weed, particularly in the spring it works well, and or if you can't present a bait. If I get a drop, I'll always use a lead clip and I'll always use a wafter or a bottom bait. In the spring,
okay.
when the fish are looking for food because they've been in almost hibernation mode, I'll use a bright hook bait because I know that's what they're looking for. So it's about understanding the carp and what he
Mm,
or she is looking for, and things like that. Like its whole metabolism slows down in the winter to the point
yeah.
where its eyesight, like you hear people saying, "Oh, I'm going to fish a match to hatch because it's match to hatch that's working now." Well, the reason the match to hatch is working is because in the spring, the water is still quite cold and the fish's metabolism isn't working at full rate,
Mm,
and that includes its smell and its eyesight. So both
okay.
of them are lacking. So when there's something really bright, it can actually make it out. When it's overpowered, it can actually smell it. So it goes along and it works really well. Come June or August, everything's in its metabolism is working at full bore. It can see the bait too
Mm,
well, and it's like, no, hold on, this is a warning sign, and it's too strong. So you start matching the hatch of what you've been throwing in, and you're actually fishing a little bit more cleverer because you're outsmarting the carp a little bit because you're mixing the hook bait where it can't pick it out. Where if you carried on fishing the pineapple, it's too easy for it to pick out that time of the year, you know.
so I mean, that's really interesting. I mean, is that something? Do you change your baiting tactic based on what you're fishing over? So if you were fishing on silt, or would you use the same sort of tactic in terms of putting the bait out, or because it's silt, would you use something sort of say stronger smelling, for example?
Not necessarily. I sort of I'll say one thing about bait. You know, you hear people talk about bait a lot, and they go,
Mm,
"Oh yeah, he's got free bait. No wonder he can put a lot in."
yeah.
I know a lot of guys, right, that get free bait. A lot of guys, and I know very few guys who know how to use it. So
Wow.
having a lot of
Okay.
bait at your disposal and knowing how to use bait is a very different thing. I've seen guys ruin lakes and shut them down in the spring because they think, "Oh, I've got a really good quality bait here. I'm going to fill it in and kill it for everyone." You know what I
Wow.
mean? Like you can do that with 3 kilo at the wrong time of the year. You can kill a lake, but when you break a bait down to a crumb, make it more digestible, it's a very different, bait. But then if you're fishing a lake that's got a lot of silverfish, and you may not be able to do that, so you
Mm,
don't put as much in, and you fish less bait and make it more effective. And it is all about understanding situations, reading the
mm.
water, stuff that you're not gonna learn on a deeper. Do you know what I mean? You're not
Yeah,
gonna do
yeah.
it. You're gonna have to go fishing and learn this stuff and learn about carp's metabolisms. Do what I've done. Read books on koi, because you will learn a lot about
Mm.
the metabolism and how a carp feeds, and how its body acts to food.
Yeah, I think again, as you said, reading books. I think that's the thing that the problem is with YouTube and everything else has kind of overtaken that. But
Yeah,
to actually watch something that was so in depth, I think a lot of people don't have, or they can't be bothered. It's just easier to ask a question on social
yeah,
media
of
because,
course
like
it
you
is.
said,
Yeah,
some guys caught 10 carp, so he must be doing it right. But
mm.
as you say, you can go and change one thing and catch 50.
Yeah.
It's just that approach, isn't it? Um, you were talking about, just picking up there again, or something you said about bait as crumb and stuff. And do you use a lot of sort of pellet and stuff in you? I mean, because obviously solid bags is all about pellet, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
see a lot of stuff about solid bag fishing, especially at places like Linear seems to be solid bag heaven.
yeah,
Make up
yeah.
120 bags and you go through them in 24 hours, sort of thing. Is that something that you
I mean, I
do a
will.
lot of?
I have used solid bags. I mean, I caught the bit common up there on the picture on a solid bag on the 1st of January, a 50 pounder on a solid bag. But
Wow.
I've also, but it isn't something I do a lot. I tend to fish boilies a lot.
Mm.
I'm a bit of a boilie angler, but I do, and also use quite a bit of hemp. But
Oh, okay.
generally, if it suits, if you've got a lot of bream and tension in the lake, you can
Mm.
be asking for trouble. But yeah, pellet, I do mix in a lot. So I tend to, use the response pellet from mainline. I normally
Yeah.
go from quite a bit of that a year, and then boilies, which I will then cut or crush, depending on
Right.
the time of the year. I always look at the carp and like an adult and a baby. In the winter, you're fishing for a baby. You want to mash all its food up so it can go through it really nice and easy. In the summer, you're fishing for an adult, so you want cheeseburgers. So you want the big baits, that they're going to eat, and
Yeah.
their body's working, the metabolism's quick, and they can digest anything in the summer, basically.
What sort of size boilie do you use over here? Because obviously you tend to associate bigger boilies, so sort of 20 mils, 22s for
Yeah.
foreign trips, and not so much fished in the UK. Do you do anything different to that?
This year, I've been doing really well mixing 15s and 18s together,
Okay,
just to mix up the area. And what I tend to do is bait really heavy, either in the middle of the night when everyone's in their sleeping bag, using a baiting spoon and I'll bait areas and get them going. Or
right.
I don't tend to ever fish over a lot of bait. Maybe look, I caught a fish over 4 kilo the other day. That's really heavy for me. It's not often I'm fishing that
Wow.
amount of bait. I'm normally
Okay.
like half a key to a key at the most, and
Right.
that'd be a tight 2 rods. Unless you're going somewhere like Linear where you put a bucket out straight away. I'm talking about the kind of fishing I'm doing, like the lake I'm fishing at the moment at Woolpack Seven's got 40 odd carp. It's no point in me putting 17 litre bucket in when I get there. I'm sort of looking for a bite, but still want to get them going. So a lot of my fishing with bait is done at the end of the session. I'll put it in, sacrifice a whole day sitting there, knowing that most of the time I ain't going to get a bite, which is
Right.
what I done the other day. I thought I'll sacrifice this session because I've done a 2 nighter. I thought last night I'm going to put a load of bait in and get back on it next week. Put 4 kilos in and caught the biggest carp in the lake an hour later. So
Wow.
didn't see it
Wow.
coming. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
Wow. So, getting back to then your sort of your fishing in terms of what you do with RidgeMonkey and that.
yeah.
So, looking at your social media, it looks like you're out on the bank constantly. Is that the case, or is it? And how much do you plan ahead?
Oh, I'm preempting everything. Whenever I'm fishing, I'm thinking about next week's session because I'm
Right.
trying
Okay.
to lay the tracks down in front of my fishing all the time so that I bump into the big one at the right time, the right weather condition. But yeah, I do 2 nights a week, normally Tuesday to Thursday. So I do
Okay.
48 hours a week. And do you know what? I can do loads more than that. There's a fine line between catching them and boring them out. And I think when you start going into 3 nights a week, you're bordering boring them out. Like when I see guys doing 3, 4 nights a week, I think, yeah, anyone can do that. You know what I mean? And when I
Yeah.
started working for RidgeMonkey, Paul said to me, like, how much time do you want to do? And I said, given that I'm going to be away for at least 5, 6 weeks a year filming
Mm.
abroad, when I'm home, I want to be able to see my family as well. So I said, I want to be able to do 48 hours a week. And he went, is that enough? And I said, Paul said, if a bloke can't catch carp doing 48 hours every week, he has no right to be carp fishing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like before that, I'd spent 15 years while working on the refinery doing 1 night a week. And I would basically bait one, say I was fishing a Thursday, I'd bait Tuesday, fish Thursday, bait Tuesday, fish Thursday.
Wow.
Because the key to carp fishing is consistency. And the pre-baiting session is as powerful, if not more, than the actual session. Because letting the carp feed in that area and gain confidence means that when you fish there, the rig where a rig that wouldn't normally trip it up is tripping it up because he's throwing no caution to the area. He's coming in, he's thinking, "Oh, I've got away with it," you know what I mean? And he
Yeah.
comes in, he just trip him up. So when I used to get that 1 night a week, and bearing in mind that weren't every week, I was probably 3 nights a month. When it came to go to me, do you want to fish 2 nights a week? I thought, bloody hell, like this is like I'm a time bandit, you know what I mean? I could do 3, 4 nights a week, but I don't want to. I want to. The balance is good for me on 48 hours. That don't mean that when I finish, I don't think I can't wait to get back. But
Mm.
that's the most important thing to have that feeling of I can't wait to get back.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Again, an interesting point because, as I say, you look at your social media and a lot of the sort of full time anglers. You look at, it looks like they're just constantly out fishing, which then gives the impression that, well, of course you catch all those fish because you're doing it so much. But actually, 2 nights a week, I bet there's guys that just do it for pleasure. Probably fish
But
every weekend. So
there's guys on the lake I'm fishing now doing way more time than me.
mm,
Like way more time that are retired or have got a job where they work shifts, and that is their prerogative. Like, but I don't want to do that. I look at them and in not a nice way. I don't overly respect what they're doing. You know what I mean? I know some anglers that are well known in this game, and if people knew the time they were putting in, it's just so unimpressive. I just
mm,
think, yeah, what I know a guy once that moved in a swim a week before a wind condition and sat there for a whole week. You know what I mean? And
wow.
eventually caught this big fish out of his lake, and everyone was going, "Oh, he's the bollocks that guy." And I thought he's just not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's not. He's unimpressive. Like if he's good, he'd have pre-baited the spot and caught it way before he had to wait for the wind condition. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
but
that's
yeah,
that's that's kind of that's a real extreme, isn't it? That's kind of
yeah,
incredible,
yeah.
really. So, in terms of the fishing you do, then is all the stuff you do kind of planned around Ridge Monkey, or is it you plan it and it just gets filmed and used
Yeah,
for Ridge
so
Monkey? Or
sort of the start of the year, it's probably in the next month. I'll have an email from Paul at RidgeMonkey, and I'll have a list of trips. Like, and normally I think there was 6 this year.
oh
So
wow,
most years I used to spread them out, but this year I done 5 filming trips in 8 weeks, and it was quite full on. So I didn't fish in England the entire spring. I just
wow,
spent the whole time in France, really, Romania. Yeah, so I was sort of doing a lot of fishing, which again, like when you're going away, you've got no choice, but you're there for the week. And the reason being is that normally throughout the year, you have family stuff planned, and it's like,
mhm,
oh, we could go and do this, and you go, I can't, I'm away that week. So I actually prefer to put it in a big block, get the films
okay,
done, but get them done at a good time of the year as well, which is the spring. So I've still got a
yeah,
trip. I've still got a trip left in October. I've got another filming trip for a tail of carp, but I try to get them done at the best times of the year and give myself a good, like I had from June till October, to target a big English fish. Do
Oh,
do
okay.
2 nights a week there. So I'm still trying to fish in England. So I know a lot of anglers now they do a lot of filming abroad. They don't fish in England.
Mm.
Where for me, that's where the love of it is for me. You know, catching big English carp on. I particularly like circuit venues where they're hard to catch. You know what I mean? And the fish,
Right.
there is pressure on the fish. You know, they
Yeah,
do know
yeah,
how to deal with a rig, and there's some of them ain't coming. They're coming out once a year, and when you're the one to catch it, it's a buzz. You know. So,
yeah. Do you? Excuse me. Do you? You just said there about that carp know how to deal with a rig. Do you believe? Are carp that intelligent? Do you sort of, from your experience, do you think they
yeah.
learn how to get rid of rigs?
I can't remember who it was, and I would name him if I could. Said the other day, "Oh, carp are stupid. They're just like a chicken." Well, he wants to come to the lake some fishing because they're not like chickens there. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Okay.
I've
Okay.
watched carp. If a carp's being fished, it sort of makes sense. If you're fishing a lake at less than 10 or 8 acres, like with a lot of anglers, the carp are dealing with rigs on a daily basis, and
Mm.
they will condition themselves to the way they feed because they're coming across rigs a lot.
Right.
If you're fishing a 100 acre pit where the carp won't see a rig for 3 4 months at a time and suddenly
Yeah.
comes across one, it's like anything, practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
The carp messes up. So the more they see rigs, the better they are at dealing with them. And a prime example of this is a lot of day ticket carp. They get caught because they get hammered, but you probably find for the amount of hours that they get
Mm.
fished for, they're not getting caught that much compared to something on a great big pit. For the amount of hours
Right.
that fish deals with a rig, he's getting caught every time he comes across one. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I
so yeah,
suppose it makes sense, doesn't it?
any animal conditions itself to an environment, and a carp is no different. They're
Mm.
very good at conditioning themselves. You know, I've noticed with carp, they're quick to find environments. Like an area will get roped off, and quickly every carp in the lake is up there within a few weeks. And you think they know their environment because if you think about it, a carp is almost in a prison. He lives in
Yeah.
this prison. He knows every single inch of it. That's why he knows where the snag is in the middle of the night that he
Mm.
gets you in. You know, and you put something different in that lake, he knows when to go on guard. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I would say they've got a very good natural intelligence to be wary.
Oh, that's really interesting. Oh, in terms of the filming that you was talking about and the trips that you've done, um, do you plan that, or is that planned by like? Do you have a big multimedia sort of team, videographers at RidgeMonkey? I know, Corda's probably one of the biggest. Nash have a big videography sort of setup. Is RidgeMonkey similar to that?
Not so much Calder. Calder are huge. You know, they go on shoots and have a
Mm.
12-man camera crew. Like, they really are the benchmark. Calder. Their stuff's at such good quality. They're the
Yeah,
benchmark. You know, but we do have, like cameraman, producer. You know what I mean? Sometimes two or three cameramen. Most of the time, just two because things like the tail of carp, I plan that, and
okay.
sometimes I only want one cameraman. Because if I'm
Right.
fishing a big venue and I want to move around, I don't want a 5-man camera crew. It's not going to suit the kind
Mm.
of film I'm trying to make. So the tail of carp is more wild and public venues or venues that people haven't heard of. So
Right.
I tend to go that. But if it's something like The Great Escape, there's 3 anglers. You need a bigger camera crew. You need
Mm.
someone overlooking that camera crew. You probably need the editor to have a really good hearing what's going on. So, you know what I mean? So it's a lot bigger crew. And moving swims is a pain in the ass because it's about 3 guys fishing and having
Mm.
a good social. Yeah, so there's always one guy that ain't on the fish, you know what I mean? So you might have to swap swims about throughout the session because you want everyone to catch. You're trying
Yeah.
to ultimately like make a good film and show all 3 guys' tactics and how they work. You know, while normally Paul's coming up with some sick challenge that we've got to do at the beginning for a swim, which is
that was one of the things I was going to
Curry
ask about
fish
the
or something.
challenges. Who actually comes up with that? I take that's not your ideas then.
No, no, we don't even get told till we get there. And if Paul had his way, one of us would be hospitalised every time. I'm telling you, but we literally have to say, "Look, calm down." You know what I mean? But, yeah, yeah, it's got out of hand a few times, but yeah, it is what it is. We all enjoy it, but there's a lot of nervousness on the day. You think, "What's he going to do to us this time?" You know what I mean? But
Oh
I,
wow, that I say that's a real insight because I just presumed it was all prepped and pre-planned and it was kind of more acted than realism, but it is actually for
oh,
real then.
we literally don't know. And I remember
Wow.
when old Dan Hawkes used to work for us, he was nearly in tears a couple of times at the end. And I used to say to him, "Listen, Dan, the anticipation of death is worse than death itself."
I love it.
Yeah.
Um, so in terms of products then, RidgeMonkey products, do you have any sort of, I'm presuming you obviously test the products, but do you have any sort of development input? Is that part of your role with RidgeMonkey,
Yeah,
or is your role behind the rods and catching the
no,
carp?
no. But a bit of everything really, like anything end tackle will come my way and I'll get to look at it and test it. Obviously, if I come up with ideas, my ideas are put forward and
Okay.
it's everything. And I think it's with most fishing companies, so I've been at a few. No product is generally any one person's idea. Someone will
Hmm.
come up with an idea and everyone will have input and that it will merge into a product. The one thing I will say about Ridge Monkey, and sometimes it annoys me, like Paul won't take anything off the shelf. So everything they do, they make. So he
Wow.
won't go out to China, walk along a corridor and go, "Oh, we'd like that. Let's stick Ridge Monkey's badge on it." It doesn't happen.
Oh,
Everything
okay.
is a mould. Everything's been done from scratch, and I say it annoys me because some of the stuff you see on them shelves is actually quite good. You know what I mean? But the problem is,
Yeah.
everyone can do it. Like so they try to be individual, and yeah, I think it sort of works for them. You know what I mean? And you say about the angling, I do more of the angling and more of the face of the brand, if you like, for the
Yeah.
fishing and things like that. And I try and bring, if you like, my expertise into things. I'll
Hmm.
get a lot of stuff run by me and other guys like Lozzie's, Jay, and all that. They'll be looking at things. And yeah, no, but Paul, funny enough, Paul comes up with, I'd say, 80% of the products. So
Okay.
yeah.
So is Paul a carp angler? Is that?
Yeah, he is, but he
Yeah.
tends to be. Paul will go carp fishing 4 or 5 times a year for a week at a time.
Right.
You know what I mean? And but he comes on every single shoot, and
Oh, okay.
it is he strangely he loves coming on the shoots, helping out. He owns a company, and he digs in. He cooks for everyone and everything, and he just loves it. He loves coming
Oh,
along, like,
wow.
he loves being one of the lads, like.
But I mean, because it is a kind of an incredible sort of rise that Ridge Monkey had from that was what was basically a pan. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
And
uh,
funny enough, Ali Hamidi said to me, if Ridge Monkey had never come along, he'd have never had the guts to leave Calder because he said he didn't
wow.
think that anyone else could break into carp fishing. He went and Ridge Monkey proved that wrong. So yeah, it can be done. You've just got to be a bit individual about it. Yeah, and it all did stem from the pan and the power packs and
Yeah.
sort of just went on from there really. And if they could see what I knew was coming out in the next year, they'd be amazed because some real stuff that you wouldn't think you could use in carp fishing, like really good stuff.
Yeah, as we've said, that from what was basically a clever pan, Ridge Monkey have seemed to have gone on in leaps and bounds, and have kind of pioneered certainly the catering side of fishing.
Yeah,
With the stoves and the Quad Connect stoves, and I mean I'm a great fan of all that. I use all those products,
yeah.
and now they've gone up, with the barbecue and the gas version of the barbecue. Is that is there a camping influence on that? Because obviously
Um,
these things can be used in any,
well, there is
outdoor
actually
situation.
there's two companies. There's also Ridge Monkey Outdoors, which supply all camping
Ah,
products. They do stuff, like the pans that have to be connected to the special cooker and all that.
mm,
They do all that for the in the van life stuff. So I don't get
Oh,
involved in that stuff. I know they've just been at a big show for 2 weeks in Germany. You know, like our carp show's doing
yeah,
now.
yeah.
So yeah, that's another side to RidgeMonkey. They do
Oh, okay.
like what do you call it? The boards you stand up and row on, and all, they do all that, everything.
Oh,
Like yeah,
really?
yeah, they do. It's really big, but obviously
Oh,
I only get
okay.
involved in the fishing side of it. As much as Paul, I think, would like me to do a
Yeah,
bit of
see you
crossover.
on a paddleboard as well,
Yeah,
rowing
yeah,
you,
yeah.
taking your rigs out on a paddleboard. That might catch on.
I
You
did
never
say
know.
I'd actually like one. I think they'd be pretty cool, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's more fishing. You know, the thing that really impresses me with Ridge Monkey was they've seemed to have hit a niche market for being comfortable. You know, with the power pack,
Hmm.
the bivy light, the head torch. It don't matter what way you put it on. You know, it's a
Yeah,
switch
yeah.
both sides. They seem to find them little niches, you know, in their design for things like that that are really clever. And they've got more stuff coming like that. I like it when they go down that route because I think that's particularly where they excel over anyone else. You know.
So would they look at rods and reels, that kind of thing? Is that something that where Ridge Monkey sort of may venture to,
I
or is
mean,
that something that?
we haven't. I wouldn't say never with Paul. Like nothing
Hmm.
is out of his realms. He'll take on anything, but I hope not, because I've got really nice free spirit rods.
Well,
Set
that was
behind
going
me
to be
there.
yeah, that was going to be my next question. What rods do you actually use? So what reels do you use? What are your go-to reels?
I use on here. You see, I've got these. I've actually got these in my office because I'm going to strip them down this week. So I've got a trip coming up. But I've got the Shimano mags on there,
Yeah, that's what I
and
use.
yeah, really nice reel. Do you know what? They're
Yeah,
tough. So
yeah.
they're really, really tough reels. You can abuse them. Where these, I'll show you. This is up on the shelf. This is retired. I've actually retired. It's the worst fucking carp reel ever made. The Basia. Look, listen to it. It's a pile of
Yeah.
shit. This reel has let me down. I've had it serviced by Western and everything.
Really?
Yeah, they're just crap. I'd never buy a Basia. Like, well, if you buy like it's weird. 'Cause if you bought a 5,000T, they're like tanks. You know, you can do what you want
Yeah.
to them. But a bit of grit in a Basia and it falls apart. But they do look pretty. But
Yeah, they
I
do.
think all round carp reel, you can't beat the Shimano. You know.
Yeah, and I think that it's something that there are in the high end sort of reels. There are those. There's two sets of anglers in there. There's the Shimano, or there's the Baziers, and it's.
Yeah.
I've had both myself, but I don't think you can fault the Shimanos. I think
I think them
the
mags
Tech
were.
mags are superb.
Yeah, they're the best reel I've ever used, and I've used a lot of reels. But it's funny because I used to buy a set of rods and reels, and they'd last me 10 years.
Mm.
Now that I'm working in fishing and I'm doing trips abroad, I'm probably damaging a set of reels every 2 or 3 years.
Wow, really?
Literally, yeah, I go through a set of reels. I have to have them serviced, and it is the weather conditions that I fish in. When
Mm.
I might be out on a massive Spanish reservoir, and then the next minute I'm on a French river, and
Yeah,
they really get battered. Like I changed from using. I used Fox alarms for like probably about 8 years,
yeah.
and I snapped the wheels out of them on braid. You know, like where the takes on the river were so savage, they snapped the wheels out of them.
Wow.
And yeah, and then I've gone on to Delkims now, which in the past I'll say I've had bad sets. No, I've had problems with Delkims, but I've now got the latest set that's come out, and
Yeah, is that
touch wood,
the V2s?
the
Is it?
V2s, yeah, that I found them really good. You know, but
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm not putting the Fox alarms down because
Yeah, yeah,
I'm putting them through. They're probably up to that date the best alarms I used because I've put them through hell. You know what I mean? When my
yeah,
fishing gear goes through the most extreme circumstances that
yeah, yeah.
anyone's is
Do,
ever going to see. You know.
do you use the same kit that you use in the UK, or do you have? I know a lot of guys like Steve Briggs, for example. I mean, he has his biggest pain is when he's done a UK trip, or sorry, a trip, a Euro trip. Then he has to take everything off the van and swap everything back if he wants to go fishing
Yeah.
back in the UK again. Are you the same as that?
Yeah, it is a bit like that. I tend to lately. I've been using my Basia reels with braid on and 12 foot £3 ISs, and I'm getting ready to go to Poland soon.
Mm.
And although the lake ain't big, it's very snaggy. So I'm going to be using their 12-foot 3.5 pound ERs.
Right. Okay.
I'll have the mags on with braid, a lot more powerful set on 40-pound leaders. I want a more powerful rod, so you do need it. But
Yeah.
if I was to go somewhere else where I needed to long range fish, I'd need a 13-foot, So I've got three sets of rods, that sort of match each environment. But
Yeah.
my go-to rod is the 12-foot ERIS from Free
Right.
Spirit. It's the rod I can take anywhere in the world.
Yeah. So I take it you don't use shorter rods. I mean, they're like the 9 foots, 10 foots
No,
from
I
other
had.
other
You know
brands,
what?
and
Believe it or not, I was the first one at Nash to start all that. And
really.
yeah, even before Alan started at Nash, I was at Nash when Alan started, and I was using 11-foot rods. And
Right.
I caught a 50 out of the Cops Lake, and I think at the time there was 350s in the country, so there weren't a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I caught it on an 11-foot. We called them hooligans. I caught it on one of these 11-foot hooligans, and Nashy, that back then Nashy was going, yeah, I want to do a range of gear that's like all the rods are small in small rod bags, and he was talking about it. So everyone sort of, I mean, Alan has done a lot for Nash, but that idea was there before Alan, because I remember
Right.
Nashy talking about it. It's just that Alan has had the imagination to
Mm.
bring it to what it was, the scope and all that, like,
Yeah.
which, let's face it, have been absolutely brilliant for them, like. But personally, if I could use a rod forevermore, it'd be a 12. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't sort of agree that it's easier to net fish in boats with 8-foot rods. I net them perfectly well on 12-foot rods.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, and so in terms of RidgeMonkey, and that, obviously they've got a full range of end tackle now as well. So, did you get involved in testing the lines and stuff like that? I know um, there's I mean, line is, you see posts all the time, people saying, "Oh, what's the best line out there?" I mean, it's a
Yeah,
how long have you got, sort of thing. But did you get involved in testing those products as
yeah,
well?
all the time. Recently, I've been testing a new tapered line, and yeah, so I'm always testing
Mm.
something. I've always got something on the go. I've been sampling new hooks and things like that, tweaking hook patterns to try and make them better, to make them
Okay.
flip better, and things like that. So there's always something going on. Like the line at the moment, the fluorocast. That fluorocast has been on them reels for 18 months, and it's £20 a spool.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? When people say to me, "I want value for money," bearing in mind how much fishing I do, that's been on there 18 months. It's £18 fluorocast, and on them rods, I can hit 30 wraps with that with no leader. It's like the
Wow.
most durable line I've ever used. Like, but I don't. I've been using braid lately
Right.
because there's a lot of mussels on the lake. But if I'm using mono, I'll use that £18 fluorocast. I think it's probably one of the best lines I've ever used.
What's your preference if you had the choice between a mono or a fluorocarbon or a braid? What
I
would
think
if you had to
that
stick with one?
the fluorocast, because it is a mono and fluorocarbon mixture. So you're getting a bit of the back, you're getting a
Okay.
line that disappears because the light refracts off it. It sinks. It's the only thing is it's a little bit stretchy because it's a mono mix. But I'll
Right.
take that little bit of stretch for all the other benefits I'm getting from it. And it's particularly tough. Like I've had some ridiculous battles on it that I know on other monos I just wouldn't have got them in.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Well, I'm just going to kind of jump quite a bit back. Actually, something you mentioned about family time, because I know recently you've been. I think it was your daughter Lottie had organised a walk. To do with well-being and mental health, and that is that
Yeah.
something that you, again, obviously your daughter's a big advocate of that. I presume you are as well.
Yeah, I am. Her more than me. Not that I ain't. My daughter she's a mental health fitness coach. So what she
Okay.
does, she deals a lot with, especially particularly young girls. Got low self-esteem and things like that, and all confidence issues, and helps them build their confidence through fitness. Maybe they're overweight or they just need more confidence, and not just young girls. older women as well. But recently, one of
Does she
the
do fat old men?
she can do anyone you want, mate. But she
I should have
recently
rephrased that actually, but you know what I mean.
anyone can be helped, mate. But yeah, I think with the mental health thing, I've not had a lot to do with it. I've got involved a little bit with the army stuff over the years, gone
Mm.
along to charity events, but Lottie recently had a client or a person in their gym that committed suicide. They'd
Oh
only
wow.
spoken to her a couple of days before, so it
Oh
sort of really hit her really hard. So
yeah.
she wanted to do that walk, and all the people in the gym come together and done a nice walk, and we went down, made them all tea and coffee, and you know what I mean? And it's hard because you don't always see it. I've had a few friends. I've had a friend kill himself quite a few years ago now. And other than thinking I ain't heard from him for 3 or 4 months, that's the next thing I knew he was dead. So it is
Wow.
hard. And we're living in a pandemic of it, aren't we? And I think a lot of pressure on people these days to
Mm.
conform to everything, couldn't they? You know, you look on social media, everyone's having the best life ever. You know what I mean? In reality, we all have shit days because
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
reality of life. Because and I say this, I've said this to my own kids. If they're like have down, I say it's all right to be down. That's normal.
yeah.
I mean, it depends how long you're down. You know what I mean?
Uh,
So
uh, Absolutely. I mean, I know. I mean, fishing is. I mean, it's absolutely. It's prescribed on the
yeah,
NHS. I mean, obviously not to the extent that you're involved in it, because I think
yeah,
that
yeah,
would that would finish most people off. Um, but yeah, I mean, and I think it's quite admirable, and for your daughter to to sort of get involved in that kind of thing as well
yeah,
is
yeah,
nice. I think that there needs to be more of it. I know we've had people who write in the who, over the years have written in the magazine and sort of just tried to emphasise just how much fishing has helped.
yeah.
Their sort of mental health and a bit of escapism, I suppose.
Of course,
Um,
it's being outdoors is just so good for you, isn't
yeah,
it? It's good. Like
but
everyone's tucked up. I think we're all stuck on our phones, and we need to sort of put them down. I think I might have said to you before, Mark, when I'm fishing, I set alarms on my phone
hmm,
because it's that bad now that you sit there, I'm watching the lake, and then the next thing I'm looking at my phone. And I subconsciously I'm going through Instagram or I'm looking at phone.
yeah,
So what I do now, I set an alarm. Say it's like 9 o'clock in the morning, 11, and I will not touch that phone till that goes off. And that
hmm.
it's bad that you have to do that, but because it's messing up me spotting fish. You know what I mean? I don't want to look at it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, no, I
it's,
absolutely, and it is something where I mean, when I first started out with carp fishing, like fishing in general, um, watercraft was such a big thing, and sitting there and you were just constantly watching,
yeah,
and this is being able to be mobile when you're angling to move where the
yeah,
fish
yeah,
are. But you see so many people now are just sat on the bed chair, tucked back in the bivvy, and I think it was Adam Penning actually said it to me. He calls it people doom scrolling because they're
yeah,
just scrolling through their phone and wondering why they're not catching carp.
yeah,
But
yeah.
you're missing so much that's
Yeah.
going on around. Um, and
I would
but I suppose that's just again, it's a sign of the
I would
times, isn't it?
challenge I would challenge any angler watching this to the next time they're fishing and they think that there's no fish showing or anything like that, to set their alarm on their phone for 1 hour, then sit at the front of their swim with a cup of tea for 1 solid hour and tell me they won't see a fish, and I guarantee they will. The lake will unfold in front of their eyes.
Well, yeah, okay, that's a really good thing. I'll put that in the magazine when we put the interview in. We'll put that as the text in there as well and see if we get some feedback from them. It is an interest. I mean, I'm as guilty of it as a lot of the time. I take kit with me to test,
Yeah,
and I spend more time faffing around with cameras and
yeah,
pressing buttons on something to see how it's working,
yeah,
so
yeah,
I can write about it or video. And and then I get annoyed because I'm like, oh, what's the point in fishing here? I'm not catching
yeah, yeah,
anything
yeah.
because I'm just not paying the
I think
attention
that's
to
just
it.
Do you know what it is? There's a time and a place for tech, and for me, it's the
Mm.
winter. So
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
winter, generally, I find that fish tend to hold up in one area or two areas, and when I've located that, and I know then it's just about putting the right application in, that's when the iPad comes out with me. that's when Netflix gets destroyed in one winter, and I watch box sets because it's dark at 4:30.
Yeah.
And the nights are 15, 17 hours long, and it's bloody bored. You fall asleep, wake up, and you think it's 2 in the morning. It's 7:30 in the evening. You
Yeah.
think, oh my god! Like that's the time
I've
that the
done that.
iPad, the
I've done that a
iPad
few
comes out.
times.
Yeah,
So, well, I think one of the it was one of the questions I was going to ask at the start actually, but we kind of just got rolling with things. But so, your nickname, the General.
yeah,
So, enlighten us to how that came about. I
yeah.
have my preconception, but I think I'm completely off the mark with it.
Well, I know you thought, like a lot of others, Mark, that it was to do with me being ex-services,
Yeah.
but it was actually nothing to do with that. It was to do with Lewis Porter, who is the manager at Fox.
Hmm.
Years ago, Lewis used to work. I can't remember if it was Total Carp or Crafty Carp, one of the magazines.
Hmm.
And I used to do loads of mag work back in the day. And this particular day, Lewis was coming down to do the article with me. And as he walks along the bank towards me, he went, "Wicked, wicked." And I said, "You're right, mate." He said, "Yeah, you know." He goes, "You must have seen General Levy." And I was like, "I ain't got a clue what you're on about, mate." He went, "The rapper, General Levy." He said, "He's
Oh
just been on the
wow!
radio." And he was going, "Wicked, wicked." And then all of a sudden he got his phone out and he played me it. And he said, "I'm going to call you the General." And in the magazine that month, I was on the cover with a fish and he put General Levy, and it just stuck from that point onwards. Like, I become the
Wow,
General.
that's. I wonder how many people actually know that then. Because as I say, you're right. I assumed it was from your military past, but
No, I'll try and find it, Mark. She might be able to add it to this. But the other year, one of my friends is a DJ.
oh
And he said,
right.
"You won't believe who we've got here today." And I said, "No." He goes, "General Levy." And he sends me a message and says, "From one general to another."
That's
And he
brilliant.
goes, "Wicked." So it is funny. Like, I'll try and find it and send it to
That's really good.
you.
And obviously, well, I think was it around about 2015. Fallen Kings was it you wrote?
Yeah,
Was
yeah,
it
I wrote my book. Yeah, God, bloody hell, it's
was it
that long
about
ago, isn't it? Yeah,
2015?
10,
So
12 years ago now. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
are we due another one? Is there anything in the pipeline with
Yeah,
that?
yeah. So I'm going to write another book this winter. I've
Okay.
been, there's, you know, what it's like when you write a book, you always think, I would like that fish in it, because I've got on my phone at any one time, there's 6 to 8 pictures of target fish, and as I catch them, I tick them off,
Ah,
and
okay.
then I'll go to the next lake. And also, I don't care whether the lake's big, small, whether it's a river. If that fish is in there, I'm going to fish for it, and I'll overcome the hurdles it involves. And yeah, there was a fish I just caught recently that I wanted in there. I hadn't caught a big fish in Cambridge, and
Okay.
so that was sort of my target this year. And I've just recently, last week, caught one. And there was another fish this winter I would like in there. It's not critical, but yeah, there's a lot of big fish to add to it. I think my first book contained 13 UK 40s, and
Wow.
from 7 or 8 different waters. So a lot of
Wow.
them were the only carp over £40 a water because it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've had over 50 now. So there's a lot of big fish to go into the next
Blimey.
book, because a lot of the fishing I do is I fish some waters like Halton that have got a lot of 40 pounders in, but I still get the biggest kick when there's one or two of them,
Hmm.
and you're targeting a specific fish and you're learning its habits, and seeing that it's got habits that you're going to trip it up on and things like that. That's still the biggest buzz for me in fishing. Like,
And what was your biggest? It was £100 plus, wasn't it? Was that Hungary?
yeah, Euro Aqua, that was, yeah,
Right.
101
Okay.
pounds. Yeah, 101 pound.
So so
Yeah,
so where? I mean, obviously, again, you see it on social media a lot. People asking for certainly for French venues. They want
yeah.
a runs water with a hot tub for the missus, and a chance of a 60.
Yeah.
But where do you go after catching a carp of £101? I mean, do, does an 80
No,
then not give you a buzz? Do you know?
no, it's not that. It's a bit like for me, when I caught the 101. few people went, "Oh, that'll ruin you." The next week, I
Mm,
was back in England. And I remember I caught a 29-pound leather, and I was absolutely buzzing because it was beautiful. You know what I mean? It's
mm,
like I just love all carp. Don't get me wrong, I want to fish for big carp because that gives me the buzz. You know, and you think, "Oh, somewhere out in front of me now is a 40-plus-pound carp." When I go to Europe, I want to catch massive carp, but a massive carp's a massive carp. Like when you see a fish
yeah.
of 60, 65 pound, it's enormous. You know what
Mm,
I mean? And
yeah, yeah.
there's not enough of them to get bored of them. You know what I mean?
Right,
So
okay.
you don't see that many. Like my sort of target abroad, if you like, is fish over 40 kilo, which I want to catch fish over 40 kilo, which is 88 pounds.
Mm,
And I think I've had five now. Over
wow.
£88, yeah. So I'd like to catch them from different venues. You know,
Are
I've had them
they,
from.
sorry, are they all from commercial venues, or are these do you do much public water
No,
fishing abroad?
I do. You know, I do a lot of public water fishing. Probably, I wouldn't say 50-50. Maybe a little bit more public than
Oh,
paid.
okay.
But there is a misconception, right, that public waters are hard. They're actually
Ah,
easier than the holiday venues
mm,
because they don't get the pressure. I've
yeah.
been to public venues that I thought I don't even know what the shouting's about. You know, like there's the carp are running up your lines, so it's really cool to go public venue. You know, but a public. That's all you hear at. Some times I think, "Oh, shut up, mate, with this public crap." You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like some of the
Yeah,
cool, yeah, some
I've
of the
done it.
coolest carp I've caught ain't in public venues. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I fished. Most of my sort of French fishing has been on the big public waters, over
yeah,
the
yeah,
years, and I actually, I think it's just a lot of them. It's the vastness, it's the
yeah, yeah,
size of the water. A lot of people would find daunting, but
yeah, yeah.
a lot
So we're
of
sort of talking about a different sort of subject there, Mark. We're talking about inland seas.
mm,
And it takes, I think, a lot of the people coming into carp fishing won't want to be anywhere near them
no,
because they are mind blowing. You know, when you sit there, when I fished Oriana, and you think it's 31 miles round.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah,
massive,
yeah.
but the carp, when you find them, will be quite catchable, which they were.
And
You
that's
know what I mean?
exactly what I was going to say. I went to a 600-acre water, and I just remembered talking to a French guy, and he said, locate the carp, you'll catch them."
Yeah,
Belgium, we did exactly the same. If you can see the carp, you will catch
yeah,
them. And it is kind of weird. But yeah, I just wondered whether, would I was on a public water when a Portuguese guy, bizarrely, was fishing 100 yards away from us and had a 72-pound mirror
yeah,
out of this public water. And I mean, the guy, and I kind of felt that was a big achievement just because nobody even probably knew it was there. It got no
yeah.
name, it got nothing. Does the public captures kind of mean a bit more, or are you not?
In
Is it
that
just the
way,
carp?
no, no, because not all carp are the same, you know.
Mm.
Like you catch a fish out of a say Dream Lakes, you catch a 65 pound common out of Dream Lakes. It's not the same as catching a 65 pound common out of Shantycop. Do
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah,
We're
yeah.
talking about a very different carp, you know.
Mm.
But it is at the end of the day personal to you.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like if someone only gets fishing once a year and they go to Dream Lakes and catch a 60 or 70, they're buzzing and they should
yeah.
be. You
Mm.
know what I mean? But if I'm lucky that I get to fish more than the average person, and I like to test myself, and them venues will certainly test you, not just the fishing, the weather, and everything.
Yeah.
They're at the extreme end of everything. But yeah, so I probably have to backwind on what I said. I weren't saying that public venues weren't hard. What I'm saying is that sometimes I think people think that every single public venue is lac de deux, and it isn't.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
You
yeah. I
know
mean,
what I mean?
I
Yeah,
fished park lakes in France and stuff that have got some stunning carping, but these
yeah,
lakes are only, I'll say, they're still 30 acres.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but there's plenty of carp in there to be caught. Whereas,
yeah,
you can go to a 5-acre commercial that's constantly pressured every
yeah,
single day for, 48 weeks of the year kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, look, I mean, we've been chatting. I think we've probably covered in some format or other every sort of concept of angling and
Yeah,
RidgeMonkey and
yeah.
everything else. It's been absolutely amazing to speak with you, Dave, and I think I've got probably another hour's worth of stuff we can go through.
No
I
problem.
haven't
Yeah,
even sort of got round to some of the bits I was going to say, but for now, I think I've took up enough of your time. We'll leave it there. And maybe, well, definitely, if you're up for it, catch up again.
yeah. No problem.
Perhaps once you've finished your Euro trips and stuff and are settled
Yeah,
back in the UK for the winter.
no problem. We'll catch up maybe in a month's time or a couple of months' time, something like that, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Again, thanks so much for your time. And I genuinely, I've learned quite a lot. I've probably realised why I'm not catching carp. But yeah, it's been brilliant talking to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark, and I'll speak to you
Cheers,
soon.
cheers, Dave.
Take care, mate.